One of my most watched videos here on my channel is my review of the British superhero TV show No Heroics, which has grown a cult following over the years since it was released back in 2008. Now, when I did that video, I found out in my research that there was an unaired pilot for an American version of this show, which no one has ever seen.
Nobody? Really? Nobody?
Which fans of the original show, and myself included, were dying to see, what it would be like and why wasn't it picked up. Then, out of the blue, like a lightning bolt, just on a month ago, the unaired pilot just shows up on YouTube, to my delight.
Finally.
We get to see it. But in that short time of 21 minutes and 43 seconds, I found out why this never got picked up to series. And thank God it didn't, as the pilot made me
a sad panda.
And so I give to you my review of the unaired pilot of... This pilot was commissioned by the American television network ABC sometime in very early 2009, with it being cast by March and then later shot in April of 2009 in Vancouver, Canada. The show was written by the original creator of the UK version, Drew Pearce, with Will and Grace writer Jeff Greenstein. Now, you would think having the creator of the original series and one of the head writers of Will and Grace, you would have some A-grade pedigree there to write a pretty decent script. Well,
You would be dead wrong.
for myself, who has watched the original show, you notice straight away that the 4 story arcs for each of the characters were all taken from the original show in various forms and rewritten for this pilot, which, look, is fine, as, let's face it, you're trying to sell this show, so why not use something that worked, right?
Wrong, 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 wrong.
Well, in theory, that should work, but when you look at it, there are 2 major things that ultimately brought this show unstuck. One was they gave all of the characters separate stories, which meant you didn't have time to fully explain or expand on the stories, which made it sort of feel very rushed, and you sort of really just didn't get invested on what was happening or where the stories were going.
That was incredibly fast.
Now, whereas the original series would usually have 2 of the main 4 characters be the focus of a story, so then you would have the other characters who didn't have anything much to do to be the support in that episode, so you could really tell more of the story and really build up more of an interest. 2, well, it's the same old pitfall that a lot of American pilots face when they're trying to adapt British TV shows, in their ability to translate the cultural sensibilities and humour that makes this show great for an American audience. America! And you can see it throughout the episode. For me, it was mostly in the characters, which, look, I'm going to get into that later, but also some of the situations in the show seemed very British in their tone, which kind of feels out of place when the surroundings are all American. It just kind of feels out of sync.
I knew something wasn't right.
If you just took it on its bare bones from the premise and the story and had probably just 2 American writers put the show together, I reckon it could work, but adapting it straight from the British show, that's where it failed.
Failure, sir. Utter failure.
Look, I'm glad they tried, but it's not hard to see why this failed. So that's why I'm going to give this an 8 out of 30.
Plus, that guy really annoys me.
Me too.
Now I'm quickly going to go through each of the characters and compare them to the originals.
Don't compare us!
Well, look, I need to show why this failed, because if you can't get the characters right, you don't really have much of a show now, do you?
Well, I guess you don't.
Rightio, let's start out with Chill Out and his British version, The Hotness. And clearly we are doing a straight up swap of powers. hot for cold. Now that's fine, don't get me wrong, but the character is about becoming an A-lister hero, and the hotness has some, even though very, very small hope of doing something with it, with his powers, if you know what I mean. And I feel like Chill Out, who just makes ice cubes, kind of comes off as really pathetic and just has no hope whatsoever.
It's sad.
Plus, the hotness was always accidentally setting stuff on fire, which created some jokes. But Chill Out, he just creates ice cubes. Doesn't really give you anything much to work with.
I got nothing.
Okay, so here we have Crossfade and Electro Clash. Now, there's no real comparison here on the powers, they're completely different. But as far as the characters' backstories go, this is where it gets similar. Now, Electro Clash's backstory is about her being rebellious against her super famous parents and the pressure surrounding her being one of the siblings of these super famous heroes. And that works, but Crossfade's backstory is about her being a child star in a very American sort of way. It doesn't do much for you to want to sympathize with her, and it doesn't really help you really understand the rebellious tendencies that she has.
Like a rebel.
Okay, now to these two, Brainstorm and Time Bomb. Now, they are very similar in the sense of their powers, if you know what I mean, which is fine and it works. And they're also the token foreigner of the group, with Time Bomb, who is Spanish, in a British group, and then you have Brainstorm, who's an Englishman in an American group. Although one thing I found a little weird is the character is gay. And in the British show, it's really upfront, and trust me, you know about it. But in the American show, it's sort of very brushed over and kind of alluded to, but not really mentioned as such. Maybe they thought the target audience wouldn't really be into that, but look, I don't know if that's where they were going. It's just something that I kind of picked up on.
You noticed that too?
Okay, we have a Slamazon and She-Force. So this one is a straight up copy of each other with some tweaks here and there. Now, Slamazon is the 4th strongest person in the world, where She-Force is the 3rd strongest person in the world. Hang on a minute. Does that mean they lived in a shared universe and both shows coexist together?
It's far-fetched, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
But I think the thing that really does work for the character of She-Force is she is very socially awkward, like a real plain Jane who is looking for her Mr. Right. And it's very relatable to a lot of us and, you know, in the audience. But Slamazon is this very good looking, cute glamour that has no trouble picking up guys, but just can't find one that's not a pervert. So not really as relatable to the audience. And that's where I think her character doesn't work as well as, say, She-Force did in the original.
Same, but different.
Now with this one, I'm
infinitum.
Willie's name for a start, and Excelsior is one that is pretty much the same. They're almost the same character. But why this one doesn't work as much as the British one does is that the actor who played Excelsior was great. He had such an arrogance and cockiness about him. It just seemed natural, where Freddie Prinze Jr. as him, Infinitum, was kind of like a weak copy of that character, and I didn't really buy him as this ladies' man, real arrogant and rude.
He's faking.
Funnily enough, the guy who plays Butch in this episode, Robert Cannavale, he would make a great infinitum. Why can't I say that name? I've seen him in other stuff, and he could have been great at it, but clearly they needed a name attached to the project to get it over the line, and I guess Freddie Prinze Jr. was the guy.
We didn't have a lot of choices.
Okay, last but not least is Horse Force and Thunder Monkey, the bouncers of the fortress. Now, the concept of the powers is exactly the same, but they just attract different animals. But see, Thunder Monkey was very serious kind of guy with some not so great powers, and that is where the comedy comes from, with him constantly getting picked on. But Horse Force, he is just plain over the top, and Josh Gad leans hard into this real campy, over the top version with this real touch of creepy infatuation to Slamazon, which Ooh, I think really missed the mark.
It's just not exactly what we were looking for.
Now look, I'll just quickly touch on The Fortress. It's very similar, and I think that is the problem. Aside from its looks, it's like a very classic English pub, but it's in a New York-esque type of city. It just kind of feels out of place. And I think they needed to go with a more of a traditional American sort of style of bar. Probably something like something out of the show How I Met Your Mother. That would have worked so much better and would have felt more like, I guess, the American show.
Now this is more like it.
Now, if we look at the cast, you can see a lot of B-listers playing B-lister superheroes. Well, that's pretty meta if you ask me.
Wow, so meta.
As far as their acting goes, Josh Gad was probably the only one who stood out, even though he was really acting over the top. You know, he was having a go, but he was just swinging for the fences. Everyone else was just either very wooden or just kind of fell out of place, as no one really were putting in that much of an effort, it felt. And I suppose there's one other thing that didn't help, is that none of them had any chemistry together.
There was absolutely no chemistry.
Granted, you know, that can happen over time as they did the show more, but sometimes it can just click, and this time it didn't. And that's why I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10.
Oh, are we supposed to contradict you?
Now, as this is a pilot, and there of course is no case, no special features to review, because let's face it, it's never been aired and it only dropped last month. And come to think of it, I think I will be the only person that has reviewed it so far, so no critic scores either. So what do you say we get straight into it and see my thoughts?
You gotta tell me what you think.
So for me, it lacked all of the charm and feeling of the original show. And it was very much this real overly slick and polished American sitcom with this weird vibe that it just kind of felt soulless in a way. Look, it's definitely a culture thing, as Americans have always struggled to adapt British shows, and hell, even Australian shows for that matter of fact, whereas I think, well, here's a thought: if an Australian version was done, I think we could have hit the mark better than an American one, as we are very heavily influenced by the English culture and kind of have the same sort of backgrounds and styles of humour.
Little British humour.
Look, it was great that they were giving it a go, but I really think Drew Pearce should have stuck to doing more seasons of the UK version and making that a real success than trying to crack it in the US market, looking for those big dollars. And look, I'm sure he had to see this wasn't going to work, you know, adapting it for the US market, or then maybe he couldn't see what was going to happen because of all the dollar signs in his eyes.
Gosh, just forget about money.
Look, it's definitely worth a watch to say that you've seen it. So look, I will have the link down below in the description for you to go check it out. And look, you really should check it out. Like I said, check it out and see what you think. But you've got to go check out the original show. If there's any way you can, go check it out, because it's definitely worth your time. So for me, this one is very much a swing and a miss on pretty much all counts. So look, I'm going to give this a 5 out of 20.
Go. You're a massive wanker.
Now, as there is nothing else to cover, what do you say we get straight into it and get the final score? So look, we get a grand total of 23 out of 70. Ooh, bugger me, that's worse than I thought.
Oh God, that's terrible.
Yep, not the best score by a long shot, and not hard to see why. It never made it to series. Look, I can't say I would ever agree with any of the decisions TV executives make, but on this occasion, I think we are both on the same page.
I never thought I'd see the day.
So, if you like this video and you want to see some more of my reviews, why don't you click that one there? Or maybe you want to see some of my collection updates. Got you covered too. Why don't you click that one there? And of course, don't forget to do the most important thing. Throw me a bat like, and don't forget to hit that subscription button. There's a lot of you watching that aren't subscribed. Don't forget to click it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.